You know what Kemi Badenoch does better than anyone? Lose the plot and still act like she's winning. This week she claimed two things. One, that the Rwanda plan, the one that never happened, was the UK's best deterrent, and two, that Labour are somehow to blame for the doctors' strike that started under the Conservatives. And the worst part, the media just nods along, like it all makes sense. So let's break it down, one lie at a time. Okay, so first up was the Rwanda scheme. She's more than happy to sit there and say Rwanda was our best deterrent, like we're all supposed to forget how it actually went. So let's remind her, and everybody watching. The Rwanda plan cost the UK over £700 million. That's your tax money. We paid £370 million up front with another £120 million for development. And every person that we're supposed to be deporting would have cost an extra £180,000 on top. So what do we get for that? Well, nothing. No, seriously, not a single deportation flight. 4 people were sent voluntarily, and that's it, just 4. But that didn't stop the government at the time. When the UK Supreme Court ruled Rwanda wasn't safe, they didn't accept the judgment. Well, no, they didn't at all. They just passed a new law that forced the courts to treat Rwanda as safe, just to keep the policy alive. I mean, that's not governance. That was gaslighting the legal system, a desperate PR move to pretend this failure was still working. And while they were still burning money on this mess, small boats crossing continued, the asylum backlog exploded, thousands were crammed into hotels across the country because they didn't process the claims, and communities were left confused and angry because the system was broken and the government knew it. And here's what really gets me. She keeps saying it. Rwanda was our best deterrent, again and again and again. And no one, not one interviewer in that chair stops her. No follow-up, no fact-check, no, hang on, Kemi, how can something that didn't happen be a deterrent? It's repeated like it's true, and that's the plan. Say it enough times and people forget the reality. They forget the court rulings, they forget the 0 flights, they forget the massive bill left to the taxpayer. But we shouldn't forget, because Rwanda wasn't a deterrent, it wasn't a solution, it was just a very expensive excuse for a government that ran out of ideas and needed someone else to blame. And if the press won't say it, then I will.
Well, we have pretty robust policies. We had a deportation bill that had very, very significant measures, making sure that people who commit crimes in our country are deported if they're foreign, all foreign criminals. And if you're in the middle of an asylum claim and you commit a crime, you're immediately deported. It was, that deportation bill had very serious measures disapplying the Human Rights Act.
I'm asking what we should do now.
Yeah, but that is what we should do now. That is what we should do now.
We should be deporting people.
We do need to. It's all too slow. And I'm not saying that things were perfect under the Conservative government, but they're getting worse under Labour.
I think you deported very many people, actually. This Labour government deported more than you did, by quite a distance.
But they're talking about a different cohort of people. What we're talking about is the small boats crossings, which have increased 42% since Labour came in. We need a deterrent as well. What we had last year was the Rwanda plan, which never quite got off the ground.
Before you get to Rwanda, what about the Royal Navy?
A third country deterrent would mean that people wouldn't even be coming here in the first place because they would know that they'd be going to Rwanda. So
I asked you about the Royal Navy in the Channel. Should the Royal Navy be deployed in the Channel to turn back these boats?
The Royal Navy should do whatever it can within its remit. But if you speak to them, they will say that a lot of the things that they're being asked to do are not things that they could do.
I don't know whether to translate that as yes or no.
Well, because it's not a yes or no question. You're asking me for an opinion.
Well, either they should be deployed or they shouldn't.
No, well, people need to understand what they can do and why. And what I'm saying is that we need to make sure that people don't get here in the first place. We have a returns agreement with France. It doesn't quite work. It wouldn't matter if the Royal Navy was taking them back, if France just allowed them to come back here again, which is what we're seeing. What we need is a third country deterrent where people are processed elsewhere. That's where the Royal Navy can help and get involved.
OK, what about El Salvador? That's the other suggestion this week. Send them to El Salvador.
Why?
Why not? Third country.
Well, this is the thing. We had a very, very detailed plan for Rwanda. There are no plans at the moment for El Salvador. Just throwing countries' names out there without plans is not what we do. We make sure that we have a detailed policy and explain how we're going to do it. That is not what Labour is doing. They're completely at sea. What we need to do is make sure that we process these applications quickly and try and make sure that we don't have so many coming here in the first place. That's why that third country deterrence is so important. You need a joined-up plan. We're talking about the end of the problem rather than the beginning. Let's start with the beginning of the issue.
Just very quick.
Just how people get here in the first place.
But she didn't stop there. Because somehow, in the very same interview, Kemi also blamed Labour for the ongoing doctor strikes. Strikes that started under her own party, strikes that her government failed to stop, strikes that cost the NHS £1.5 billion while they were in charge. So let's be clear, Labour inherited a dispute the Conservatives let fester, and within weeks of taking office, Labour had reached a deal. So how is Kemi trying to spin it? By claiming she would have introduced minimum service laws. As if that stops anybody walking out of their job when they're burnt out, underpaid, and being told that it's them that they're the problem. She says that Labour gave away too much, but let's not forget, Conservatives gave away nothing. They just let the system rot. And now, with her party out of government, Kemi suddenly wants to work with Labour as long as she gets to take the credit if it works and throw blame if it doesn't. It's the same as the Rwanda. Spin the failure as strength, blame everybody else, never take responsibility.
Yes, we need to bring this sort of strike action by doctors to an end. And the Conservative Party is happy to work with Labour in the national interest versus the BMA, which has become increasingly militant. We need to introduce minimum service levels. That's something that we brought in when we were in government. I did that as business secretary. Labour's scrapping that. But this is the 11th strike that we're seeing since 2023. Junior doctors have had a 28% pay rise, resident doctors as they're called now. We need to start being realistic, living within our means.
When you say work with the government, what would that constitute?
Well, at the moment, what we see is a government that is afraid to take on the BMA. I remember when West Street...
they've been pretty clear with the BMA. They said that you're not going to get any more money. The Secretary of State couldn't be clearer.
But they can't negotiate. The last set of strikes meant that patients died. People die when these strikes happen. It's not a joke. And I don't think that Labour know how to negotiate. We're prepared to work with them to bring in legislation.
Hang about.
We're prepared to work with them to stop this sort of militancy.
Hang about. Last set of strikes under your government. They can't, strikes doctors, train drivers and so on, that Labour can't negotiate. You couldn't negotiate your way out of any of those strikes.
We didn't give away a 28% inflation-busting pay rise. Labour
but you didn't stop the strikes.
The first thing well, neither have they, but at least we didn't pay billions for it. The strikes between 2023 and 2024 cost the NHS about £1.5 billion. That's taxpayers' money. There are people who have operations that are delayed. There are people who died. This set of strikes in 2025 is set to cost £370 million. And what we do know, Trevor, is that this government doesn't have any money. They're losing money. They're taxing people more. Everyone's suffering. And they promised that they would tread lightly. What we need to see is less of a burden on the lives of all of your viewers who just want to get on.
We started this bit of our conversation with you saying you're prepared to work with government to help end the strikes. And what you've done for the last 3 minutes is slag them off.
That's because you asked me the question. I answered your question. We're prepared to work with them, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to point out what they did wrong.
OK.
So, let's recap. Kemi Badenoch just defended deportation scheme that never took off, tried to rewrite the strike history while her party let the NHS bleed and walked away like she should be in charge. But here's the twist, even her own party don't buy it. Because behind closed doors, top Conservatives are quietly bringing her down. They're questioning her judgment, her leadership, her real chances of ever running the show. And trust me, they're not holding back, which you can see in the video that's on screen now. To have a watch, it's revealing, pretty damning, and it's all coming from inside her own house. Thanks for watching, don't forget to hit that like button, and I'll see you next time.